Good evening, everybody, and Tuesday the 7th of November for episode 115 of So What's Been Happening. Nice little Tuesday night. Geez, it was a bit of a warm one in Melbourne and a little bit warm around the place currently. So Melbourne Cup Day for some, nut for the cup for plenty of others. So we're going to talk music again tonight, which is exciting on the front of 3 nights. We're going to back-to-back. We're going to go again, which is great. 3 more interviews. So this one's been hooked up by Chris Familton. So thank you for doing that with Jamie Hutchings. We're going to have a chat to him shortly. And tomorrow night, episode 116, we're going to be live with Mark Sinton as well. So keep in mind for that one. And then Thursday night with Al Carr. So look forward to these chats coming up in the next couple of days to get into the week well and truly. Just before we do kick off with Jamie, I'm just going to mention a couple of gigs that are coming up. We have got this Wednesday night, if you're not on the podcast, the Deary has got a gig at the Gem, so make sure you go and check that one out in Collingwood. And then the big gig or festival for Luli Palooza, part of Luli Tavern, features a heap of current bands out there, headed by the Murlocs, Coffin, and Full Flower Moon Band. So make sure you check that one up. Emily South was on the show not long ago, so make sure you get out there and check out her. That's a big gig for these guys at Victoria Park and in Lily Street in Collingwood. And also Small Town Romance have got a set on Sunday the 12th at the Gem with Luke Sinclair set supporting. So make sure you check that one out too. Very much in and around Collingwood area. Okay, so tonight we kick off with Jamie Hutchings. Some may know Jamie from Bluebottle Kiss, but that was one of his many bands. He's been in a few bands in the multiple lineups, but now doing a lot of solo stuff at the moment, and has got a great new album out featuring, bear with me for a second, I'm just going to bring up this. That in a second. So, all right, let's bring up Jamie and have a chat. G'day, Jamie. Welcome to episode 115 of So What's Been Happening.
Hi, Aaron. How are you?
Yeah, very good, mate. Thanks for joining us on a quiet Tuesday night.
Thanks for having me.
Once again, like to thank Chris Familton for hooking us up and having a chat. We had a chat to Mark Muldray only sort of 10 or so episodes ago, so I know you guys play some great music together. So look forward to having a chat in particular about your music journey tonight, Jamie.
Yeah.
All right, what we're going to do, we might even start off with a song just to kick us off, Jamie, and then we'll get into a little bit of a chat about the upcoming record or the record that's just been released.
Okay. All right. Well, let me try and do that. All right. Well, I'll play the steel string first then. Yeah, I can play a song called On the Rack. I'll just put myself up here. Okay. The world inside a bed where the feet live and the dread sleeps beneath the eiderdown. The rain on tin the sweetest, and I used to live in there. Back of my head to the window, a solitary tree looking in on me. Unglued. And who knew work it out. At least that parted my hair. The landlord came and knocking me sleeping the sleep of the dead. Is anybody in there tied my mattress to the rack? With a piece of broken clothesline, I'll chock-a-block with rust. And through the outdoor where I was unglued. And who knew? Unglued. And who knew? Not propping up a bar. No, I'm half past caring. If home is where you are, then that roof needs mending. It's the indifference of the star. Oh, 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 and who knew?
Yeah, thank you, Jamie.
Thanks.
We had a little bit of early guitar struggle to pick up the guitar a little bit early, but we got it there in towards the end. So play with a couple more buttons. Hopefully, it picked up a little bit more at your end. But we got the gist. Tell us a little bit about that song, mate. The Rack.
Yeah. I wrote it about moving out of a place I was living in. Sometimes I'd get a song from a very tiny event, just an image or something like that, and build it from there. So that song, I got it from I went to South America. Moved to South America for 3 months a few years ago. Did a trip and was kind of just having a big change and moving very quickly out of this bedsit sort of flat. And I only had one friend to help me, and he had this old van and roof racks, but no hockey straps or anything like that. And had to move the mattress, and so I lived beneath this house. It was a very old couple that never used their backyard, and they had an old clothesline that had all this rust all over it, and it was just sitting there. They never put clothes on it, and we didn't know what to do to tie the mattress to the roof. So I just got some snippers and cut a bit of the clothesline off, which was all rusty, and we tied the mattress to the roof of the van with that, and it seemed like a good image to start a song with.
Yeah, absolutely. Would have made a great photo too, no doubt, as a single cover. But yeah, thanks for doing that for us. And once again, thanks for joining us on a Tuesday night. And especially inviting us kind of into your little humble abode, mate, where we get to have a chat about your life. It's a nice little place to be. Although I'd like to be sitting with you in person, Jamie, it's nice that you can just kind of relax and just have a chat about your life and your kind of music journey.
Yeah.
Let's flash back as many years as you can remember in music and talk about maybe your first kind of memory of music that you do remember, kind of in a house growing up. Do you kind of recall what it was and what was playing?
I always remember sitting on my parents' stairs and listening to my mum used to play that Barbra Streisand and Barry Gibb record. You know, it's got all these kind of real soppy ballads on it. It's the one with Memories on it. But I remember just sitting on the stairs and listening to it through the wall and being quite moved moved by it. That's a really vague early memory, is hearing that record.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's weird. It's weird how we always kind of kick off with that kind of memory, and it's either really strong with some people or really distant, but still a memory, no doubt. And it's always sometimes a weird one as far as obscure and not kind of necessarily where your path ever headed in music with that genre. So, Bee Gees, Barry Gibb, yeah, what a voice, what a band.
Yeah, I mean Barbra Streisand is such an amazing singer. I think she had really bad stage fright and stopped performing after a while. But I mean, I haven't really heard it since those days my mum used to play. But she is like a really convincing, emotive singer. I guess that's why she was quite a good actor for a while as well. So yeah,
absolutely. And growing up, mate, what was on the? Do you remember your first album you bought?
My brother and our friend Mark Muldrow here at the show, the three of us are really tight friends, and we got completely obsessed with the Beatles when we were kids. I was a bit younger than them, so it's probably early 80s, probably around the same time John Lennon got shot. We were just the three of us really only had ears for the Beatles. We used to have Beatles listening parties where we just sit and listen to their records all day and sort of try and outdo each other in terms of who could remember the most words and so forth. But we were completely obsessed with them. And I think we collected their records just through our friends. My parents weren't really into the Beatles, so we'd collect them from friends' parents who didn't really listen to the records anymore and just scout around. And I think eventually between the three of us, we ended up having the whole collection.
Nice, very nice. Still got the collection to this day?
Yeah, still got a lot of them. My wife's a big Beatles fan too. She picked up the White Album somehow from a second-hand shop for like $2, which is unheard of. So we've got that with a poster inside it. But that was the beginning, like Scott, Mark, and me really getting into them. And then the three of us, we all kind of went. Our tastes sort of all went in different directions a little bit. So we all had a favorite band after that we really, really went with.
Yep.
I really got into Split Enz, I think, next after that. But yeah, the Beatles were the first kind of band that I got obsessed with for sure.
Yeah. So Split Enz, what age are we talking for you there that Split Enz really gripped you?
I reckon about probably about nine years old, maybe.
Yeah, right.
Like they had, I remember hearing, I think those early Neil Finn songs because Tim Finn and Phil Judd formed that band, and then Neil Finn, who was the younger brother, and is the one that's sort of become very famous. But those early hits, I think it was a natural progression from the Beatles, like I Got You and History Never Repeats. They had those very Beatlesque memories, a kind of something quite emotive and hooky about those melodies. So and also they're quite a strange band, like quite theatrical. They had this sort of vaudevillian element to them. And when I started buying their records, I started listening to Tim Finn songs as well. He's got this really strange high warbly voice. And I think their early records were produced by one of the guys from Roxy Music. So it was quite like very melodic, but quite experimental and unusual for its time. So any music initially that confuses me a bit, and then it's got something that attracts me, I tend to kind of want to jump in because, I don't know, it's not like you get it straight away. It becomes something that by increments you get deeper and deeper into, and then it becomes a real obsession.
Yeah, absolutely. And music obviously became an obsession to you. What was the first instrument you picked up? Was it your last, and how's that progressed, or have you picked up multiple instruments over time?
Yeah, probably the latter. Like Scott, my brother, was playing drums. Mark was playing guitar, and so at first I thought I should play bass, and I think I tried to play bass briefly. But I don't know. Music didn't really grip me in terms of wanting to play it until I was a teenager. So I had a go at a couple of things, but was pretty slack. And my parents had let me have a few lessons, but I'd been pretty hopeless. Like Scott and me both had piano lessons when we were really little, but we didn't last. And so by the time I was a teenager, my parents had sort of given up on any music tuition. Like I did music in the first year of high school when you do all the electives, and it's the only subject I've come rock bottom last in. I came the very bottom of the class, so I didn't take it as an elective. But I started playing drums because Scott, my brother, was playing drums. He didn't want me to play drums, but I would sneak onto the drum kit when he wasn't at home, and I got really into playing drums. And that was the first instrument. I didn't pick up guitar till my late teens, but started playing drums pretty solidly from around my mid-teens.
Yeah, right. It's a pretty common story, actually. The older brother, once they're on the drum kit, the younger brother wants to obviously emulate the older brother and potentially outdo him. But it's a very common story to jump on the kit and get kicked off by the brother, actually, and go and find your own instrument.
Yeah. And Scott's quite fastidious. He takes very good care of anything that he possesses, and I'm a bit haphazard, so I can't blame him really. But that was part of it as well.
Bit of a common trait too for drummers, I might add. They tend to be the very fastidious ones. Everything's got to be exactly in the right spot before they get off and play gigs. So you mentioned guitar as a teenager. What was your first guitar you picked up?
I think I bought a really cheap acoustic guitar, and the idea was just to learn enough to write songs. That was the only thing that interested me in playing guitar. I didn't really want to become a hotshot guitarist or anything, or learn how to play famous songs or anything. I just would hear a lot of, I was playing in mucking around in bands, but behind the kit, I couldn't really lead anything in terms of writing the songs, but I was getting a lot of ideas. And so I think I had a really cheap acoustic guitar. And then again, my brother had left behind like a knockoff sort of Strat, like a really crappy Strat copy. I can't remember what it was. I think it was like called a Honda or something like that, like maybe a Korean sort of knockoff Strat. And someone else, a family friend, had lent us this homemade amplifier. I think it was a bass amplifier, but yeah, so that was the first thing that I played through, was a combo of those two.
Would have been a distinct sound, hooking up like that. How'd the neighbours, what were they like back in the day? Receptive?
Well, the room where the drum kit was, my brother like covered that whole room with egg cartons, so it was just a dull raw on the outside. Wasn't too bad. When I started getting into a bit later, when I started playing guitar more and singing and doing home recording, I think, again, didn't really have any complaints from neighbors, more like my sister and people like that. It'd be like, sounds awful. What are you doing type thing, just, yeah. My mom was very tolerant. My dad actually is, he's retired now, but is a professional musician. So he never really heard me during the day because he had a full-time job, which is another whole story. But he was playing music during the day, so he wouldn't really hear me too much. But he would have hated it too if he'd had a chance to hear it. He probably would have found it more annoying than my mum. My mum was one of those typical mums that's very patient with, just as long as the kids are happy doing something that seems sort of vaguely interesting, then she sort of tolerated it and put up with it.
And she knew where you were.
Yeah, true. Yeah.
So you were very much the music house in the neighborhood?
Yeah. Music was a really normal thing for the family. I think even like the fact that my dad, when he would play music, like play records, he'd play them really loud. I always think that was an interesting contrast to when you go to friends' houses, the music would, if there was music, that would be very low. Where Dad would, if he liked something, he would turn it up to a really deafening volume. So that was it was very much, if you're listening to music, it was an event, it was something you engaged with rather than just something to fill up awkward silences. It was actually an event. So Dad would get my dad's real love is traditional jazz, especially big band jazz. So you'd have those sort of stuff like Sinatra and Glenn Miller and Benny Goodman and stuff like that, and it would be that big horn sections, and he'd play it very loud. So yeah, music was sort of a pretty normal part of our childhood.
Yeah, awesome. And you mentioned, you touched on your sister there. No musical interest for your sister?
Well, I've got two sisters. So my younger sister Sophie's actually a very accomplished and successful composer. She's like a pianist, and she's very established in what they call the neoclassical genre. So she's sort of put out a number of albums, and she's got her own thing, quite successful thing happening. My other sister Alexa, who we're closest in age, she's probably musical, but she didn't really ever pick up an instrument, and she's lovely. Love her to death, but our musical taste couldn't be more different. She was a typical teenager listening to Kylie Minogue and Madonna and stuff like that. So we'd be at loggerheads all the time.
Yeah, absolutely. So fair to say you won the fight to the record player many a times, no doubt.
Yeah. I mean, I'm fairly opinionated now, but I was even more opinionated back then. I would just sort of speak as an official on the subject. So,
yeah, right. My way or the highway, basically.
Yeah, a little bit.
Yeah. All right, Jamie, we're going to get you to play your next song, and then we're going to talk a little bit more about the new album and what else you got happening.
Okay. All right, I'll play this one. All right, this one's called Life in a Dressing Gown. Swimming slowly towards the dawn, I hear you breathing and your lips are pursed. I know it goes in, but does it come out? Tend to feel life in a dressing gown, in a dressing gown. You feel why you don't know. Now we see you, now we don't. Lead is blowing in the southerly. She found them on the floor behind the TV. And there's the flat feet on the pavement south. Tend to feel life in a dressing gown, in a dressing gown. You feel why you don't know. Now we see you, now we don't. Thus he holds him in her throat, with the forces from below, below. Oh, oh, oh.
Yeah, man, that was beautiful.
Thank you.
All right, let's talk new music, latest releases. You got a bit of a back catalogue there. I was looking through a little while ago. It's been a big journey for you, but awesome to put out some new stuff again, especially solo, no doubt.
Yeah.
This new album in particular, you're releasing, called Anew. Tell us a little bit about how this one came about, and how long's it been in play, I guess.
I wrote a lot of the songs during the lockdowns. So I think I had more time on my hands, and previously previous projects that I'd been doing were more collaborative. I'd sort of got a bit bored with sitting down on an acoustic guitar and writing a song. So I've been working on improvisational music, collaborating with other people and so forth, where Anew was basically putting down sketches on my phone and then like being quite methodically not moving on to anything else until I'd turned each sketch into a song. And I would take the sketch and go into a room and work on it. So it was quite hard work. It was more like putting together a puzzle, and also in the whole process of recording it, I built it from the ground up on my own as well. So I was going to try and record it myself. I had this old 16-track tape machine, but it broke and I couldn't get any. I spent like 2 years trying to get it fixed, and that didn't happen. So I ended up going to a studio owned by a guy called Tim Kevin, who I'd done produced some records for other people with, and we recorded it there. So and I pretty much did a one-man band thing, so kind of like bedroom recording but in a studio. So started on the drums and moved around, and just slowly built it up. So and there weren't proper demos that existed. They were just iPhone recordings initially. So each version on the album is like an embellished demo pretty much. I just hear something and go, I might add this weird bit of percussion, or I might look around for another instrument. So I tried to use as many different things as I could, even the guitars. I didn't use my own guitars usually. I just used whatever was lying around the studio, so that everything was fresh and a little dangerous in terms of not being too comfortable with being across the instrument as well. So it's got that slight clumsiness, the record, as a result, which I like.
Yeah, I think it's a great record. I've had a listen to it over the last week or so, and really like it, mate. So congratulations. It'd be great to get it out there. It's just released mid to late last month, and it's ready to kind of hit the road, no doubt, into the new year.
Yeah, it feels old to me because I've heard it about 1 billion times, but it's only really just being heard by other people now.
Yeah. I suppose, how important is that to finally feel like you moved on from that phase now? I suppose there's a lot of lockdown recordings that have kind of happened, or a lot of songs that were written during that phases. A lot of artists kind of questioned whether they're even going to continue at this point, and on the back of COVID. How important is it to get this one out there, get it out to the people, and then kind of, do you feel like you want to move on to what's next after that, or are you happy to kind of sit on this one for a while?
Yeah, I'm always engaged with what I'm doing in the present. I mean, I like revisiting songs and different aspects of music I've put out over the years, but I'm not very careerist about it. It's like it's really driven by a hunger to create, and I feel pretty unsettled if I don't complete things. So I do really like to. It's part of the process is to get to that point of releasing it, putting it out, doing shows for it if it's appropriate, and at the same time, I'm usually like I'm thinking about other things musically now, but looking forward to playing these songs. But I almost have to relearn them by the time you put it out, because it's such a long process. But definitely like putting it to bed after that and moving on to something else.
Yeah, for sure. And interesting enough, some of this art that was put together especially even the start of the new song you're just releasing first. Just tell us a little bit about this art that forms kind of the new start of the new single as well, first of all, but also the obviously cover of the album.
Yeah, well, Ruben Wills, who's married to my sister Sophie, so he's my brother-in-law. He's been playing bass with me in various incarnations. He plays bass in one of the bands we have called Infinity Broke, which my brother Scott is also in. He plays bass in Mark Muldrey's band, and he's played bass on pretty much all the solo records except for this actual record. But he's recently taken up painting, probably over the past couple of years, and yeah, I really love his paintings, and I thought they're often very rural but quite expressionistic and quite vivid. And the album to me has a very springtime. There's a bit of a springtime feel and theme to it, so I thought it was a good pairing for the album.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, we're going to play a little clip from Roustabout, and then we'll have a little chat about it. But it's a fantastic clip, mate. Well done to everyone involved. So let's play a little bit of this first and come back for a chat.
Okay. About Emma's living room. Got to be grateful for all the small rewards, so throw me a blood moon. But if there's a disarray in the corner of what used to be a golden broaded key, that bottle of mother's love. Why can't I tell you? Why can't I tell you? Oh, clouds, they like to prey upon the single mattresses of dawn, and many have I laid upon without you, without you. When I shovel dirt, what's been troubling you? And you slap me down, turn my smile upside down. That's what you have to do. What are we waiting for? The fog to clear. Well, if it does, the seven heavens above may well grin ear to ear. Out there is a truth. Out there is a truth. Oh, clouds, they like to prey upon the single mattresses of dawn, and many have I laid upon without you. If
There you go, Roustabout. Tell us a little bit about Roustabout, mate. It's a great clip. Great stuff.
yeah, the clip's actually made by Mark Muldrey. I mean, you've had him on his show before, and he makes amazing film clips really simply. He pretty much does them with his iPhone. Yeah. But he's got a great eye, and yeah, I had the concept of, because the song's called Roustabout, of just doing these kind of odd jobs, but in a butler sort of outfit. And then that teddy bear, it's actually my childhood teddy bear, and my mum found it about a year or two ago. And it was funny because Mark remembered it as well. But I think I've been thinking of using it. And then my wife, Shalina, said, "Oh, why don't you have the teddy bear kind of coming in and out of it like an apparition?" And then at the end of it, the end of the clip, we have this sort of dinner. I come home and the teddy bear surprised me with this dinner, but it's kind of like a, you know, like an apparition. You can't work out if it's really happening or it's not. But that was the whole concept. And we did it at my parents' place. So it was cool to hang out with Mark for a day as well, because we don't always see, unless we're playing music with each other, we don't see each other that much. And he spent a lot of time at my parents' house as a kid as well. So the clip people have sort of said to me, it has a bit of a nostalgic feel, but it is literally nostalgic because, yeah, it's got the teddy bear in it. You know, I'm using the garden shed in my parents' house and stuff like that. So it's quite cute.
Yeah, it's really interesting. I mean, that easily could have been shot 20 years ago. 30 years ago, even the way Mark's put that together. So it's fantastic to kind of document a little bit of, you know, how life kind of used to be, or how it even was really during a lockdown. Talk about go crazy. You were lucky enough to, you know, put an album out, but you mentioned it was a little bit different for you, this process normally. What's your traditional kind of songwriting process for you?
Well, traditionally, very much like this record, but I just hadn't been doing that for some time. I used to feel like I used to get scared that I'd forget how to write a song, so I used to almost do it as an exercise. If I hadn't written a song for a while, it was like something that I wanted to practice in case I forgot how to do it. And then I remember there's a period where I hadn't written songs for a while, and I started collaborating. I did an album with a project called The Tall Grass, which is with Peter Fenton, who is in a band called Crow, and we started writing songs together. I'd never really properly written songs together to that degree, and he'd come up with an idea, and I would finish it. And as soon as I would start doing it, it just came back naturally. And at that point, I thought I don't really have to worry about forgetting this or thinking about writer's block or anything. So, but yeah, there was that. And then I put an album out. I put out 2 albums this year. So the one before and you is one called Making Water. And that's an album of, I guess, what you would loosely term avant-garde experimental music. It's off the cuff sound art done with acoustic instruments and objects. And that's very much about creating something out of nothing. And some of it's quite dissonant and unnerving sounding. Some of it's quite pretty, but it's not songwriting per se. And then Infinity Broke, the other band that I play with Ruben and Scott and Tyrone, that's drums, sort of industrial percussion, bass and guitar. And a lot of our songs, especially now, are written from us improvising in a room and me taking those improvisations and turning them into proper songs or compositions. So there's all these different ways that I find kind of entertaining. After playing music for like 3 decades, I'm all about trying to find ways for it to, I want it to be exciting, and doing the same thing over and over is a little dull. But then having said that, sometimes when you revisit something you used to do, that can be exciting as well. You just need to have a little holiday from it.
Yeah, absolutely. Maybe these lockdown phases, as bad as they were sent for some sort of reason to re-spark a few people, sadly. I mean, a lot of bands went by the wayside on the back of COVID, didn't go ahead after COVID. A lot of new bands formed during COVID. Songwriting kind of really changed, or recording processes changed during this phase in relation to being able to make it up or on the hop and really be able to send it around the world to different people and get multiple people involved, different members, different musicians, to put their little take on it. So some kind of magic came out of this phase. It wasn't all bad, I guess.
Yeah, every situation produces a different result, and creatively, change of situation, change of location, something that happens in your life, it could be awful or beautiful. It all seeps into people's artwork, whatever form of art they're in. So certainly COVID, exception. It was very big change. You know, a lot of people really hated it, understandably. I mean, my memories of it actually are kind of positive from a selfish point of view, just enjoying everything slowing down, not hearing planes in the sky, and just not feeling guilty about doing nothing, stuff like that.
Yeah, absolutely. Do you find yourself, or do you find yourself inspired by anything new over, post COVID? Did you find something during COVID, other artists or people you hadn't connected to for a while that you've really become inspired by?
Hard to think of stuff consciously. I'm always looking for new ways into music, and certainly listening to other people helps. So I go through periods where I listen to really challenging experimental music, and then I get a bit exhausted, I guess, by that, and we'll start listening to more traditional sort of artists. But yeah, I can't remember what I was listening to during COVID. Actually, I don't know. It's coming back to during COVID. I did this thing where because I had a lot of time, I started reviewing every record from my record collection and posting it on my music page on Facebook. So, and it was sort of something for me and Shalina to do together as well. So she's an avid sort of, I guess, op shop record collector. She had a lot of old op shop records, a lot of 1940s sort of compilations and so forth. And so every single one I would take out and I would listen to it properly and write sometimes a glowing, sometimes a damning, sometimes an ambivalent review about it. So, and it actually was really interesting, like especially the 1940s recordings, and doing some research on how they recorded a lot of those records. So that was a time when I discovered actually really active listening again, because you often, like most people, are listening to music on the go these days and not really concentrating on it. But to sit down and really, for want of a better word, like analyze a piece of music is something that people don't do as much. So I was doing that a lot, and maybe that inspired some of the sounds on Anew, because some of it has got especially the piano. I was very inspired by a lot of those 1940s orchestral records where they've just got one person singing into one sort of tube microphone, and they've carefully placed all the musicians in the rest of the room in spots so that their instrument will bleed onto the one microphone. And the piano especially, they would often use a tack piano, which is a really trebly piano, so that it would cut through the orchestra. And that's one thing that I took from that music on Anew, is very much, and Tim Kevin, who engineered it, who plays the piano on it and is a brilliant piano player, he really helped me emulate that sound. I mean, on that Roustabout song is a classic example where the piano has a 1940s sort of very trebly 1940s kind of sound.
Yeah, it's and is there someone that you've kind of listened to maybe in the last month or so, someone new that you've kind of found, or is there another artist out there, might be a young artist that is kind of doing the things around Sydney and that we wouldn't know about?
I was listening to a band the other day. My brother forwarded them to me. They're a Sydney band called Mope City, and they're really good. I haven't seen them play, but I was listening to their new record, and it's really interesting. It's kind of lo-fi guitar music. It has a bit of a 90s feel, but it's very scuzzy, and the guitars are sort of purposely tuned so that they're sort of slightly wonky and out of tune with each other, and the vocals are often double or triple tracked, but again, very haphazardly put down. So it's got a really disorientating sound to it. So in terms of a local band, they're probably one of the more interesting things I've heard recently. And I'm actually, this week, I'm at the moment producing a band called Restless Leg, doing their latest record, and I know them quite well, so it's not a new thing, but I think they're worth this people checking out. They write really good pop songs, but they're really good musicians, but there's a nervy sort of clumsiness to the approach, which is pretty charming as well. It sort of reminds me of like 80s sort of New Zealand style indie pop, like Flying Nun sort of stuff. So yeah, there's always great new music. coming out.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for highlighting a couple. Great name too, I might add, Restless Leg.
Yeah.
All sorts of thoughts. Yeah, it's great. All right, we're going to touch on another song from that latest album, Anew, called A Bird Now. This is recorded. Just tell us a little bit about where this recording was. This video taken.
Yeah, it's at like a private sort of venue in, I want to say Petersham, maybe it's closer to Canterbury. Yeah, it's just some young people that live in a house, and they have a room at the front where they rehearse and so forth, and they put on shows. Bit of a guerrilla kind of under the radar type of thing, which is great. And I did a show there with Darren Cross, who goes under DC Cross. He's an instrumental guitarist. So we did a bunch of shows, and one of them we did at this spot, and it was really great, just in terms of atmosphere, playing at a place that isn't a bar, where it's kind of a lounge room. I think it invites people to kind of really engage and listen, probably the way people used to in their drawing rooms, a couple of 100 years ago.
Absolutely. All right, we're going to play a little bit about this from this song, A Bird Now. But yeah, like you mentioned, it's a great little room. So if you're only listening to the audio version of this, I encourage you to jump on the YouTube version later on and have a look at this little room. Blessed to have this kind of space to be able to play in, and most importantly for punters to come and listen in. There's some of these little magic places around the place that kind of stay under the radar too. So they're kind of really intimate shows. But here we go with A Bird Now.
I stood center stage in an empty room with a net of words falling over me. There was splitting bow and feathers growing as the makers grinned to see me floundering. Every time I try to say my name, squawk and squeak, there's no words I can say. For I am a bird now, I am a bird now, I am a bird now, I am a bird now. She kissed me on a bus, and from then I dreamed I was powerless to most anything. Now when people talk, or I do the same, I find my tongue come wrap itself around my every time I try to shift the blade. Squawk and squeak, there's no words I can say. No one seems to mind my beacon close.
Great to have those little spaces for sure. It reminds me of one in Melbourne called the Cactus Room. Tiny little venue, very much flies under the radar, but not quite the home shows, which are really cool. If there's one of those in Melbourne that I can remember, that truly some magic happens in those rooms for sure. As you mentioned, intimate listening the way it kind of really should be, as if you were just listening to headphones and being able to be taken and transported away for an hour or so. It's great. How much do you enjoy playing those kind of gigs, Jamie, versus the big pub rooms?
Oh, much, especially for solo shows, I much prefer those places. I really don't like playing solo shows in pubs. I mean, I like playing in rock bands as well, and so it's different. But like I hate, like say in Sydney, there's a lot of free entry rooms, which is great in a way. But if you're playing solo, in one of those sort of sports bar types places, for me, I'd just rather not do it, because people tend to just view acoustic music as a background thing, and they'll just sort of talk over it or whatever. And it's not even a pride thing. It's more that I just can't concentrate. I get nervous and kind of mess up and stuff. It's like, yeah, I think having people's undivided attention is easier when you're in one of those rooms, like I guess what I'd call a listening room.
Absolutely. Just on that, I know I'm going to hit you up for a bit of a tough one, but what's your favorite kind of room that you've played in, or bar or venue?
Well, in Sydney, in terms of solo shows, during those lockdowns, when they would, there was periods where there was venues that were open with limited capacity, and I had this whole string of shows. There's a place called the Camelot Lounge in Marrickville, and downstairs there's a room called Django Bar, and they were sort of just surviving and doing these limited capacity shows. And I had a really good run where I was sort of regularly playing down there and selling it out each time. They kept asking me back. I don't know. I think it was just a little golden period because people were starved for opportunity or something. But they were really enjoyable, those shows, from a solo artist perspective, because it's like 50 capacity kind of room at the time. So people were able to sit comfortably. I mean, some of them people had to wear masks, or they weren't allowed to go to the bar. They'd have a waiter would come around. It was all these sort of quite strict rules. So that was a little difficult, but yeah, I really enjoyed, in terms of solo shows, I really enjoyed playing those. I guess in terms of band shows, I've been to France quite a few times. Haven't been for a few years, but yeah, I've played a festival there quite a few times in a place called Binic, which is in the north of France, called the Binic Folk Blues Festival, and that's always been a really good time in terms of, whatever rock. Generally, I've been there with Infinity Broke a couple of times, and with Mark Muldray as well. And yeah, that's been a lot of fun in terms of doing something different.
Yeah. And have you got a dream of one stage you'd like to play on? If I could transport you right now with your current lineup, or being a solo show, so you'll open, Infinity Broke will hook up next, and you can have a band that headlines after that. Who would it be, and where would it be? Big question.
I guess I'm not worried about playing with those. See, there's definitely bands I'd like to have seen. I'd love to have seen Can. I'd love to have seen the Jimi Hendrix Experience. Yeah, those two are definitely probably two big ones. Yeah, probably.
Would you like to have ever played anything? Would you like to have ever played anything like as big as something like Woodstock was? So you speak of Hendrix there, but that was an incredible festival back in the day. But would you ever like to play something to that scale?
Sure, I'm up for anything really musically. I'm not. I kind of like being pushed into situations that are even kind of crappy sometimes, especially if it's with a band, and just dealing with it. And then I've been on tours in the past where you've gone from playing something be a really ornate space with great sound, and the next, then you're driving 2 hours and you're playing in some crappy sort of little bar. And I kind of like it all. I like being shoved into different situations, and the way that the room will sound different, how it'll bring a different thing out of the performance. The audience will be different. I think that's part of what makes playing live music really interesting. I guess for some people, they want it to be a really controlled environment, and they'll only play under certain conditions and so forth. But it's like recording. I like recording in different spaces. I'll record in an old shearing shed, then I'll record in a little box studio, and each of them brings something different to the recording, or in the live context to the live performance. So I mean Bluebottle Kiss, my band I was in the 90s and 2000s, we did things like we did a tour with Midnight Oil through Victoria, and that was incredibly hostile audiences. They're kind of famous back then for having audiences whose whole job when it came to the support band was just to scream and yell at them and tell them to get off stage. And then you played to someone else that's really receptive. But each of those experiences are really interesting, even if they're awkward and difficult at the time. So I kind of view every single one of them as a particularly as its own experience.
Yeah, absolutely. Some people say to me, man, how can you be out so often seeing the same bands? You know, what you'd seen the same band 3 times in a month or something. So, well, it's all a unique experience, even at the same venue.
Yeah.
Somebody can be, you know, there can be a different artist, or most importantly, we always get there early and see a lineup of supports, and there's always a magic support that you've never heard of, blows your mind, and you think, wow, like, where's this person come from? How did I not know about this person? So yeah, it still blows my mind today, the incredible talent that's out there in music. But just give us one bit of advice from all your years of touring around the world. Just give us something that you could kind of give to a young band that's kind of still trying to cut through and work their ass off, and doesn't seem to be kind of getting, it's a big world out there now. It's hard to get a real cut through. Is there any word of advice you can kind of give a band that's kind of still pushing to make something?
Yeah, I think just try and separate yourself sometimes from the reaction. Try not to take yourself too seriously or take things too personally. It's really, really hard to do. Most people that create are very sensitive, and I'm no exception. But I think you do it for a long time. If you want to keep doing it for a long time, you have to find some way to separate some of the disappointment and some of the hurt that comes with exposing yourself, and being vulnerable. You have to find some way to protect yourself, because a lot of people give up and end up giving away a beautiful gift because of being discouraged or being hurt by rejection or by difficult situations. I think everyone probably has a different way of doing it, and some people probably just can't do it. But I think you do have to find some sort of work on the skill of being able to not allow yourself to be too hurt by some of the difficult situations. Because people, when they see you play live music, especially if they're not a musician themselves, they'll imagine that it's this really special, fantastic thing. But for everyone that does it, there's equal amounts heartbreak as there are rewards. So yeah, you do have to find a way to navigate yourself through some of the more difficult situations, because if you're doing it for a long time, you will, no matter how successful you get, you'll have some situations that are really hard.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's also, you touch on hard times and different points in your life, and challenges. People just expect to go and see a band, and the band's just 100% on all the time, every night. And that's not always the case. Some musicians are going through all sorts of battles themselves. So, yeah, be receptive as a punter for sure. Just enjoy the moment. One thing I really hate at gigs too much now, and I try and take a few photos and a bit of footage, but I try not to overkill it, because there's nothing worse now than all you see is just, it's like the mask is off, but I still can't see your face because you're holding your iPhone up, and it just kills me. And the other one that kills me even more is just people just talking, and I can hear them louder than the lead guitar. And it's like, honestly, if that's what you want, go out the back, don't waste someone else's time. How distracting is that still as an artist after all these years? How do you just push past that?
Yeah, it's pretty difficult. I used to get really angry when I was younger. I don't know. I think you need to approach it with good humor, but also sort of be confident about what you're doing, and not allow it to distract you too much. Sometimes we think something goes bad in a show, whether it's someone heckling you or someone really distracting you, you can find yourself in a loop and a negative spiral where the show gets worse and worse because of this situation. So you do have to sort of find a way to coach yourself through it, that if something falls apart or goes badly, that you've got to kind of delete it and move on. It's a kind of, again, it's one of those sort of skills that I'm still working on, but especially playing really quiet music and people are talking, it's difficult, because it's not a matter. People probably think that an artist being precious and taking themselves too seriously, but requires a great deal of engagement for you to be able to pull it off. And if someone's blabbing away or whatever, but a lot of people don't know, that's the other thing. You got to have empathy for the fact that not everybody understands it. They might have just blown off the street. They're not really a music fan. They've just walked in. They're on their way to catch the football game and their friends are. So, there's all these different situations and everybody's so different. So you kind of have to find a way of not judging people too harshly either, that they are probably from a different planet to you as well.
Yeah. I think you're very kind, Jamie. I think if people walk into a venue and there's music playing, there's some sort of, I don't know, unwritten etiquette, isn't there?
I agree. I agree. I don't do it, and I hate it when people do it, but I kind of just, I don't know. Trying to find some balance.
All right, just before we finish up, mate, where can people come and see you next? Have you got anything lined up before the end of the year now?
Yeah, there's a couple of things this year, and then my whole proper tour is happening next year. I'm going to do. I'm actually playing guitar with Mark Muldrey's band this Saturday at Mosh Pit. So he plays very rarely, so the whole band's going to play. I'm going to do a solo show supporting Crow, pretty legendary Sydney band, one of my favorite bands, in December. I think it's the 9th at the Union Hotel in Newtown. And then I'm doing pretty much an East Coast tour, solo tour, through January and February. So I'll be in Brisbane, Adelaide, Melbourne, Sydney, and then some regional shows, Canberra, Newcastle, and Thirroul. So, I've got a lot happening next year and just a couple of bits and pieces this year.
Fantastic. And obviously working on producing people's albums and mentoring, no doubt. I think someone, young bands could definitely use an incredible mentor like yourself, guiding in the right direction. I know you're pretty humble, mate, and you probably, take that with a grain of salt, but definitely mentoring young musicians and steering them in the right direction, I dare say you get a lot of satisfaction out of.
Yeah, I love working on music in any capacity. Like I love making my own music, but I love producing records. I like playing guitar for people. If it's music that I enjoy, rather than, again, like making the same record over and over, having different roles. Say in Mark's band, I'm kind of the lead guitarist most of the time in that band, and I'm not the front person. And I have a great time just sort of playing guitar and letting him being center stage, or I'm usually center stage in my own projects. So all these different, they're all really satisfying.
Yeah, definitely. All right. Before we finish up, JamieHutchings.com is where you're jumping on to look for some more info, a little bit more about Jamie, jump on their Bandcamp, buy an album. Most importantly, gift another album to someone else and surprise them. Would be really cool to do. I know anytime I've done that and sent something out to someone else, they've been blown away. So make sure you do that. If you like what you're hearing, make sure you do that. So a couple of requests here from Chris Cameron. Beechworth, is that on the agenda?
No. I was hoping to do some regional shows around Victoria, but I'm actually playing in Victoria on the Australia Day weekend, and I think it's a tricky weekend. So I'm just going to fly down to Melbourne and do one show there. Nothing in regional Victoria this time around. I'd love to go to Beechworth and buy some wines and sort of hang out there. That'd be nice, but yeah,
maybe next time. All right.
Yeah.
Look forward to having a chat. We're going to go out with one of the songs called December Park. This is off, I believe it's off this album.
That's a live album. It's off a couple of albums. So it's off that album. And it's also off an album called Bedsit. So there's a few different versions, but they're both on that album, on those two albums.
Beautiful. All right. Well, thanks for joining us, Jamie. We're going to go out with December Park and play a little bit of that to finish us off. But thanks for joining us on episode 115, mate, of So What's Been Happening. Really honoured to have an hour of your time, mate, in amongst the Tuesday night. when I'm sure you could be relaxing. So I really appreciate your time.
No worries. Thanks for doing this. It's great that you're investing in interviewing different musicians and exposing their music to different people around the place as well.
Cheers. Appreciate that, Jamie. All right. Have a good week and see you out there soon.
All right. Thanks, Aaron.
No worries. Here we go with December Park.
It's the first day of the summer. All the streets are awful dark, 'cause everybody's on holidays. I'm walking through Centennial Park, and it's raining jacaranda. The bats seem to be this one. Hey man, whatever happened to you? I smell a storm's about to come. Oh, were you resigned to disappearing? Coming back lost, coming back weary.
There you go. Bit of December Park from Jamie Hutchings. All right. Just before we go again, I just want to touch on following up just for the shows that are on tomorrow night. Mark Sington's going to join us and play a few live songs as well, and then Thursday night with Al Carr. So make sure you come back and check that out. And thank you to everyone that's joined us on this show. We need to update this list that's on the screen now. I'm sure there's a couple more that we need to be added. So I appreciate everyone that's jumped on all 115 episodes of So What's Been Happening. See you soon and enjoy your week. Ciao for now.